Welcome to another Digital Marketing Answered. I'm here joined today by Dixon Jones, which we're really pleased to have on today's video. So Dixon, welcome to Digital Marketing Answered.
I'll just give you an advert for your business.
And sip some coffee.
Hello, and thanks for having me, Tim.
Yeah, well, it's good to be here and in London today talking about entity SEO and inLinks. But I think first of all, you've had a really good background, and it'd be good to hear a bit about that and let the people watching know a bit more about Dixon
me.
Jones.
Well, I started doing SEO, internet marketing, in around 1999. I set up an agency in 1999. The only reason I set up the agency or got into SEO is because my first website, I used to write and run murder mystery evenings, and instead of setting up a website where everybody else was, I wanted to be able to get my data and pull my data out if I could find it. So, I went for an ISP where I could see the data center, so I could knock on the door if I needed the data, which meant that they had a log file analysis system that came out every Thursday, which most ISPs didn't have, and I could see that I was getting traffic from Ohio and Florida and places like that. So I kind of worked out that, firstly, I couldn't get my actors to Ohio and Florida from London, and secondly, I could work out why they were coming there and then start to re-engineer the algorithms and stuff like that. So that's how I started in search engine optimization.
Wow.
And then, so I've founded a company called Receptional, still goes today. I'm not part of it anymore. It still goes in Bedford. It's much bigger than when I left it, so they've done something right. And I was there for around about 10 years. I was doing that, and at some point in that time, everybody was trying to look for backlinks, and they were trying to analyze backlinks, and everybody was using Yahoo's search API, Yahoo's API, because they were the only people that were giving backlink data.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this other thing came along called Majestic SEO or Majestic 12, or it was various versions of the word Majestic.
Yeah.
And I tried it. I spent £10, I think, for Receptional. Big amount of money.
Yeah.
And tried it. And press a button, and it didn't work. It broke. I got some kind of 500 response error, and so I onto the support ticket. Oh, don't you know who I am? I spent my £10. And I got this reply back from the owner who built the damn thing saying, sorry, here's another £10. Here's everything fixed, and it's all done. And then I did it again, and I realized that they weren't using Yahoo's search API. They had actually, I say they, he, from pretty much his bedroom, had worked out a way to use peer-to-peer networks to crawl the whole of the internet and get the backlink data completely independent of everybody else. I thought, bloody hell, I know everybody in the country or everybody in the world that you need to see with that. Yeah. So I got him down to the Business Design Center, where there was a conference on, digital marketing conference, and I introduced him to a whole bunch of people. I think Matt Cutts was down there, Dave Naylor was down there, who's a big person in the industry, Danny Sullivan, who now works at Google, and just a whole bunch of other people there. Yeah. And there were people that he would never have met if I hadn't been there. So anyway, over the next few weeks, we kind of discussed it, and I thought, well, I'd love to have Majestic as a client. Yeah. Unfortunately, they couldn't afford Reception as a client, so we had to make some deals along the way, and came up with a solution, and ended up, me being marketing director of Majestic for the best part of a decade. So, that's how I got into that.
Yeah, I mean that's a fantastic story. So it was literally from your £10. If your £10 had worked, you might not have ever been the marketing director.
I probably would. Yes, that's it. Yeah. You've got to give a bit to get a lot.
Indeed. And I mean, from your time at Majestic, I mean that must have been an incredible experience. I mean, what did you learn? I mean, 10 years at Majestic. How much have you seen change?
Well, it's quite interesting. I mean, because it didn't really need a huge amount of outside funding. It's not as if it got, the VCs piling in and all that sort of things. It was a freemium model. I learned about freemium marketing really well. I just seeing the explosion of what happens when you find a product that fits a niche. And having a barrier to entry, because you can crawl the internet if you want,
Yeah.
but it's going to take you a while.
Yeah.
So having that niche that had a demand, you don't need to be all things to all people. That's one of the things I really learned. I also learned that when it comes to SaaS businesses in particular, it's not about how many people you've got. It's about how good your machines are, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's I think probably every machine is equivalent to an employee in most organisations, because that worker is just working 24/7. And if you've got thousands of the things, you can still run them with dozen people or something like that. So it's incredible what you can do. As long as you've got people that are good at what each individual thing that they do. You can go quite a long way. So, and just going around the world really and talking, that was great. I can't complain about the travel perks.
You were the person fronting that discussion and being there. And how did you? I mean, because you
thought I owned Majestic. I didn't own Majestic. I've little piece
Slice of the pie.
little slice of the pie. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well. It's obviously that slice of the pie then gave you some opportunities. So Receptional, you obviously exited out of that. That was good. And then Majestic. When did you leave that?
Well, I mean, I'm still to this day. I will still, just a couple of weeks ago, I did a curry night for people in Birmingham, SEOs in Birmingham, sponsored by Majestic and stuff. So I'm still an ambassador, if you like, for them and get on. But I kind of moved back from the day to day about a year before COVID, I'd say, and that was the point at which I stepped down as marketing director. I became a non-employee of Majestic. I became my own person again. And I think it was just time, really. If the business wanted to develop from that point on, I'd done what I was good at. I'm kind of good at getting a business from nothing to something.
Right. Okay.
And it's anybody that's done an MBA will tell you that there's a complete difference between a 20-person business and a 100-person business and a 1,000-person business. And of course, after around about 20 people, the game becomes about politics and not about innovation. I mean, I'm sure somebody has innovation in there, but they're not. They're not the C-level director necessarily. So I like building something up to a point, and then not letting everybody down when I when I step to a side.
It's interesting though that you can identify that in yourself as to what kind of an organisation and at what stage the organisation's journey is in, where you deliver the most value. Because I think a lot of people, and potentially those people who build companies, maybe want to hang on too long, maybe want to stay there too long.
For some people, that's appropriate. But what they really have to understand is that there's a huge dynamic change between running an organisation where you're leading it and running an organisation where the team are leading it, if you like, and that change comes at a price for the founder. So, and the price is that their goals have to change and their expectations have to change. And it's really annoying because what tends to happen is that the founder gets to the point where they've finally got enough cash flow, because the poor old founder usually hasn't had any money for the first 5 years of their lives and stuff.
Or longer.
Exactly. So and so they've brought other people on, and those people have come in. Maybe not. Maybe they could have got more money elsewhere, but it would have been a more boring job. The excitement is in the startup phase, and then it gets to a point where there's some money coming in, enough money coming in, and what happens then is the founder says, "No, I just want to keep it like that. I just want to. I just
don't want any more headaches.
I don't want anything to change. Just want to carry on like this." And everybody underneath then says, "Now this is looking like a business. This is what I worked for, and now I want to bring it up." So now everybody underneath then wants to push it up. And if this person doesn't change their mindset, I don't know what language you're allowed to say on this, but anyway, they're a bit messed up. They can be a bit messed up. So I think either your mindset has to change, or you have to step aside and allow somebody else to do the CEO role, especially if you want to stay in innovation mode.
I think there's probably a whole other scaling discussion that we can have. But what I want to do today is talk about entity SEO.
Yeah.
And I think we'll get on to like your next innovation in terms of inLinks and what that delivers. But I think for the people watching to understand, like how has SEO changed? So if you're a CMO or you're a marketing director, and you're looking in and you've been doing this for years and you understand, the whole gamut of digital marketing. I love the fact, by the way, when you started talking about, you talked about internet marketing. That's such an old school
Am I
phrase.
so old?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, but I recognise it from that. But in terms of SEO, the goalposts have always moved rapidly.
Yeah.
But where are we at now with this entity
So I
SEO?
think over the history of SEO, and I go back to the late 90s, there's been 3 distinct phases. I'm sure that there's Google is changing updates now, multiple times a day. It's small tests and things, well, not always small, but back in the pre-Google days, it was all about getting the right words in the right place on a web page, and it wasn't really until Google came along when phase 1 suddenly changed the game and they had the PageRank algorithm. So the PageRank algorithm for the audience is all really about understanding the power of each individual link between websites. So the way I explain it is usually if you've got a map of all the roads in Britain, then you may not know everything that's happening in Birmingham, but you can see that it's a lot larger than Hayes and Harlington, for example, because of the nature and the thickness of the roads that are going in. So you can find out a lot about all the places on the web or on the places on a map just by the nature of the roads that are going in. And so as a place gets bigger, more links have to go in, more roads have to go in, the roads have to be bigger and thicker, so they've got to come from more important places. And that's kind of the idea behind the PageRank algorithm. And that developed for quite a long time, until around about 2012, 14, something like that. Google bought MetaWeb, which was a database, a free base of ideas. So instead of looking at the world in terms of keywords and words and links, they can now look at the world in terms of concepts and ideas. So they can say, right, a picture frame is a concept of a picture frame. What's in that picture frame may differ from picture frame to picture frame, but the concept of a picture frame is the same whether you say it in English, whether you say it in French, or whether you say it in Chinese. The concept is the same. Those words are now just labels for a concept. So organising the world's information by concept turns out to be a lot more efficient at scale for a big search engine, because if you order all the world by pages, for example, and then you have to know what's on each page, then every day there's billions of pages getting added to the internet, and those pages ultimately have exactly the same concepts within them. So you may have trillions and trillions of pages on the internet, but you've only got 100 billion, 200 billion, however 100 billion concepts. And so that database has less records than that database. So better, more efficient if you're trying to retrieve information to sit there and say, right, somebody's talking about a picture frame of office space. Bosh, let's go and find all the pages that have got this concept, this ID number for picture frame 452, and this one over here for office of 643. And then if you say something like London, then you've got that in there. You've now got how many pages on the internet are actually talking about picture frames in London offices. Probably not that many, and so you're right down. So the system can work much more efficiently. So Google changed to that third phase, and for many years, this PageRank approach and this topic approach were competing with each other on Google, and they were doing tests, and they were, allowing both ideas, philosophies to sort of develop, if you like. Ultimately. And I think a lot of people think that the organic results in Google have got worse over that time, but ultimately that's the end game for them, and they've pretty much committed to this approach that they have to organise the world by because there's just too many pages and they're coming on too fast. So entities is it. So understanding what an entity is key to search engine optimization and to pretty much any digital marketing of the future.
Yeah, it's really interesting that actually I think what a lot of people haven't thought about was Google's driver to go to entities and away from words and language was
a scale problem.
Yeah. Whereas people always talk about Google trying to give the best results, but they were planning for the future and going, well, hold on, we're going to have too much in the way of page and language.
Yeah.
And also interesting because we do a lot of international SEO at Innovation Visual, that the language, that the entity SEO crosses languages.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that you don't necessarily have to be going, oh, well, we've got to optimize this and it's got to be in French or Spanish necessarily.
Yeah.
It can understand that there's a very strong entity correlation on a site, even if it's only in one language or a limited number of languages.
So it makes a massive difference to the whole language system, although there is another part of the equation, which is reading content and then breaking it down into its constituent entities. And you can do that in two ways. You can either try and do it in its original language, but that will mean that you need lots of different natural language processing algorithms, one for each language structure.
Yeah.
But there's already loads and loads of translation software out there, so they can use a translation methodology to translate it into a language that everyone does understand, and then read that, and then so they can do the maths in any language really, with one algorithm that understands concepts, and that's what inLinks has done really. It's kind of got this ability to understand a page of text and say, right, that is ID number 456, this one's 742, this one's... And if you suddenly turn a web page into a bunch of topics with a hierarchy, so it's about this item first, then this item, then really by 4 items, you've pretty much narrowed down exactly what this is.
Okay. So before we go into the detail of inLinks,
that's really...
I think
I'll do that.
I think, but it'd be worth explaining to people watching and listening. So now, in terms of the history, you talked about the history of the search engines and the algorithms. So
another ad, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. The words on the page. So I know back right in the day, the white writing on white pages not really a good thing. But optimizing sort of on page being the primary thing, and then the ranking being links being the optimum thing, and now we've got the entity approach, which is entities. In terms of the journey as to what you need to do to optimize, without looking too far back, where are we now then? If somebody comes along and says, I want to get my commercial website found online organically. What's the difference? Where are we at now?
Okay, the point that was said there missed out context. So, and I think that this is something that a lot of sort of business owners that say come to a marketing agency, they come along and say, I just want to be number one for on Google, and the answer is for what? For chairs, for money, for and so that is where I think authority in context becomes an important part of the game, and that's where brand still has a part to play. But I think, of course, if you are an IBM or an Amazon, then you've got a huge potential to. I say IBM. Who's heard of IBM these days? Then you've got a huge potential to use that weight in a particular direction. But if you try and create a small brand that is too broad, then you're going to have real difficulty with a search engine trying to find where your authority lies, what topics your authority lies in. So, so I have had a huge problem with my name is Dixon Jones. I own DixonJones.com. I've had it since 1999. You'd think getting to number one for the phrase Dixon Jones would be a pretty straightforward concept. Unfortunately for me, there was a architects, a firm of architects called Dixon Jones, who
Yeah.
designed things like the Royal Opera House and stuff,
Yeah.
that was significant with 200 years history
Yeah.
and a very nice Wikipedia page. And, and they owned dixonjones.co.uk, which, by the way, was a flash site for many years as well. And I still couldn't beat them, so I was very, very annoyed. And the reason was I had no name for myself.
Right.
And every time, and as things developed, Dixon Jones became associated with the concept of architecture, not with the concept of SEO. So it was a big fight for me to build up some reputation that made me separate from Dixon Jones, the architect, and differentiate. And I, over the years, I tried to email them. We had a couple of emails at times. I sent them a Christmas card one year, I think,
Yeah.
But as life went, anyway, they didn't really, take to me trying to be, a different Dixon Jones.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're bankrupt now, so
wow.
they're
Okay.
insolvent. And I don't think that's anything to do with me. I'm not pretending it's anything to do with me at all. But it's still, now I am number one. But they've still got the Wikipedia page. They've still got the 200 years of history.
Yeah.
Just because they've gone doesn't mean to say their story hasn't gone.
Right.
So what I'm saying there is that building your brand up closely aligned to your subject matter is very, very important.
Right.
So I spent a lot of time in the early days having a page on dixonjones.com/architecture, which did talk about the other guys,
Yeah.
and it was a stupid idea. Now
Right.
it would be a terrible idea because all I'm doing is diluting my influence within SEO, where I do have a say, and telling a search engine that this website is also about architecture, which in that case you want to go to dixonjones.co.uk.
Yeah.
So don't talk about the wrong things is the lesson there.
Right, okay.
And that really messes up keyword research and all your planning, because if you're I don't know, let's say you sell Mustang cars.
Yeah. Just
then
because you like them.
Yeah, then don't start writing about horses,
Right.
because or aeroplanes, both of which are Mustangs, because they're entirely separate entities.
Yeah.
You're going to confuse the system,
Right.
and you're going to dilute your authority in the entity that you want to associate your brand with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's stay focused, stay niche. To exactly what you do. Don't chase traffic, and we say that to people as well, because if somebody does come along and say, luckily the people that come to us typically don't say I want to be number one on Google. They talk about generating revenue and ROI from organic search, but very much focus on what it is there. But in terms of then taking it to the next level, yes, the big players, the Amazons and maybe even the we'll talk Tesla because everybody knows that one rather than IBM.
Yeah.
They have the brand and they have the position to go forward from there. However, if you're a relatively new company or small company and you don't have the brand, how can you use clever techniques to find the right traffic for what you do? We'll call it that.
Well, let's use a Tesla example then. I suspect now if you type electric cars into Google, you're not going to get Tesla as number one.
Yeah.
So the question is, what is number one and why is it number one? So what has happened is probably at some point electric cars, Tesla was put out as the number one website for electric cars, if they did any SEO at all. But
famously, they don't do marketing. They make a big point about
do they really?
Do marketing.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Google never did marketing either, but they seem to have adverts on telly now.
Yeah.
So all bad things come to those that wait.
Yeah.
So I don't know what is there for electric cars, but what is likely to be there is something that's going to be starting to explain the difference between electric cars. It's going to be content that's going to try and go across different brands. It's going to start talking about different ideas. The question is, those people are now, those sites, that's the auto traders or the auto cars or whatever, they're already specialists within the car industry, and so they've got a section on electric cars.
Right.
Is your product, is your brand being represented in there? That is actually quite an interesting question for people, because it will add links to your website. It will add users coming to your website, and it will increase a search engine's ability to understand your brand in the concept of electric cars.
Yeah.
So getting yourself associated with in locations that are already reputable within that field is a no-lose situation for you, because being there on Autocar, you might have had to pay for your advert on Autocar. Obviously, an editorial is better.
Yeah.
That was the same when you were doing newspapers before the internet arrived. Getting an editorial, brilliant.
Yeah.
Getting an advert, the thing of that. Advertorial. That was Sorry, kids. They were things that we had when we had papers. But I think that there's those concepts haven't changed. It's just that the search engines now are kind of blending those ideas. Of course, they're trying to see whether it's an advert or a paid advert, or whether it's an editorial in there. But ultimately, it doesn't necessarily matter. Yeah. What matters for brand is, are you being associated with the right concepts in the right place? Because all roads will lead to Rome. Yeah. As long as you've properly decided what Rome is and made sure that it's your domain, So if you want to be an expert on if you're an electric car manufacturer, then you probably do want to try and prove that in some respect you're the best electric car manufacturer for something, the longest range, the warmest car, or the the smallest
electric cars.
Whatever the USP is within there, you want a seasoned a person that's really considered the product. From anywhere, the options comes to your product for something, for one thing. And that's going back to the niche marketing. And as long as your marketing has reflected your true USP, they will get there. They will get there, and if they don't, and if they're going to get there, then a search engine will eventually get there. It may take them longer if it's taken longer to.
So it's not, because it sounded a bit like in that discussion that the smaller individual entities...
It's more of a monologue, wasn't it? Sorry,
no. It was interesting that... is it that the aggregators are going to win? Is it actually that the very big media sites, we're going to go back to a time where actually it's the aggregators winning? Because if you search for a hotel now, like a relatively niche hotel in a place... You end up, and I did this, I was trying to find a pub that I stayed at before down in Dorset. Yeah. And, then probably not SEOing their site particularly, but they were right down the list on the organic results compared with the hotel aggregators.
Booking.com and stuff like that. And Booking.com, I used to have I used to have a property in Wales. It was in North Wales, beautiful place to go and see. And it was but we did most of our sales through Booking.com. And I went in to try and SEO my page. And Booking.com don't let you SEO your page because they're the experts at SEO. They decided I didn't know what I was doing. So there's this standard, no, I'm sorry, that's for SEO purposes, that particular page. So, we're not going to play around with it. So they do SEO for every property that's on their system. And then they group those by, North Wales, or by, ones with a electric fire or a coal fire, or whatever. By concepts, by concepts that people are looking for. So to your question of whether the aggregators will win, that's an intermediate problem for Google. Right now, the aggregators are winning again. However, the aggregators were winning about 10 years ago, before a thing called Panda came along, Panda or Penguin, I can't remember which one it did, but it suddenly killed all of the directories overnight. All of the thin content directories. Google decided this was just a stepping stone, and therefore, if they killed all those people, they could go straight
to the
there, and then those end people would start advertising on Google instead of advertising on all those directories. So they decided they were thin content. What has happened since then is that the good aggregators have stepped up. The Booking.coms, the Skyscanners, travel's a very interesting one from that point of view, but also for cars and stuff. There are big players in that industry who have so much more depth of knowledge within that field that the search engines cannot ignore them, and they need to put them there if they're going to show a good answer for hotels in London, because
well, it's interesting because you refer to thin directories, and then we talk about what's winning now, which is things like Booking.com, Skyscanner, and things like which I don't think they would ever consider themselves directories. They're knowledge based, and especially if you look at things like the car market, those sites that are winning, they're actually like magazines plus kind of thing, aren't they? They're very deep knowledge.
What's different with these ones though is that they're dynamic. So, a search engine cannot be looking at all the room nights in all of London every single time. Well, they can, but that's a significant diversion to looking at everything in the world all of the time. So Google can spend some time on travel, and then they can try and compete directly with Booking.com. It gives them a whole load of antitrust problems, but so it's a question of whether they want to. They can't do it for everything. And cars are second-hand cars come and go all the time on a by minute basis. So at that point, the question is, if I want to sell my car, am I going to sell it on AutoTrader or go straight to Google? I'm going to go to AutoTrader, and probably in the US, a completely different set of systems. Or go to my local dealer, and my local dealer will put it on AutoTrader. Basically, I'm probably not going to go and put it straight onto just Google. They may put it onto a system that goes to AutoTrader and to Google and to Loot or whatever all the other systems are, so that it's everywhere. But ultimately, the first point of data, the point of truth becomes the point of truth is the car that's for sale, and then where it's advertised. And so if it's going to be advertised on Rightmove, then all of a sudden Rightmove is the place to go. I know that's
really interesting. So with this way of talking about concepts and what's going on, let's talk a little bit about inLinks, because that's been a good few years in the development and making, and really is starting to make some strides now. So can you explain what inLinks is?
So it's an SEO platform, but it is approaching SEO in a different way to most of the other platforms. So at its USP level, it's kind of entity focused from the ground up, and primarily it started optimizing the internal links on web pages around concepts, and adding some schema, and then helping you write your content. But it's developed a little bit from that. So now it can start with content planning, for example. So most people, when they plan content, either say, you know what, we're going to produce this thing, so we've got to talk about that. So they do it from within, and they do what they're going to do, and that's fine. Most businesses kind of evolve, sort of
talking about. They like talking about themselves a lot of the time.
Yeah. The more enlightened ones will then say, well, what the hell is it that people are searching for to come to my business? And so what they then do, the next mistake, and all the SEO tools are then worked around, how many people type in this keyword every month, and what data can we have on that? And there's data sources like SimilarWeb and SEMrush have a data source, and Google's Ad Planner is a data source, and there's different ideas and data sources for this stuff. So people come out with spreadsheets of keywords that you should optimize for, because then you're going to get lots more traffic into your website. That and whole tools have been written around that, massive tools. Some of them, on the New York Stock Exchange now. So credit to them. However, they started a long time ago when everything was keyword focused. The challenge now is that, as I say, Mustang means 4 different things, 3 or 4 different things. So knowing how many people type in the word Mustang every month is of no help to you whatsoever. Or knowing how many people type in home insurance is one thing, but if they're actually looking for house insurance, and Google knows that these 2 things are semantically exactly the same thing, then the results that come back could be the completely different opposite word, but they still correct results in the user's head. So it's better to develop your content, in our opinion, and the way that we've built it, by analyzing all of your website, breaking it down into the underlying entities,
Yep.
So yes, they'll appear as words to you and me,
Yeah.
but each of those entities will refer to
it's
this
a
Mustang and this Mustang are totally different concepts.
Yeah.
And so we've got these ideas of Mustang in the concept of a car. So we've broken down all of your websites. We now know everything that you're talking about. So we've got a pretty good fingerprint of your digital world, how you saw your digital world, how you built it up. The question is, what is really strong in that stuff that you've not mentioned in your title tags or as headings for pages? So what have you not highlighted out of there that people are typing in, that people are interested in? How can we look at that by understanding the concepts? So what we do is we take all those concepts, and also any questions that you've got around those concepts. We then throw them back into Google Suggest, actually, and have a look at what Google comes up as suggest. So as you start to type a concept, Mustang, then there's Mustang, Pony Mustangs, Ford Mustang, and then all of a sudden, then what we can do is take all those queries that Google is suggesting, put those back into our algorithm, say that one about ponies is absolutely irrelevant to the content that's here. So throw that one out. This one here about Ford Mustang, absolutely important. Or this one about over 200 mile range electric car. That's important. So these things we can filter out all the suggestions that Google's making. We can filter out the ones that are inappropriate
by logic,
and then we can come back and have a look at the ones that are appropriate and say, you know what? That's fine. You've talked about that a lot, so maybe you should improve your content on there. But what you really need to do is talk if you're going to write new content, you should talk about this, because this is a big hole. And if you want to be an expert in the vertical of electric cars, you really need to talk about this subject matter because it's semantically very close to what you're already talking about. You're not taking a leap of your brand. You're taking a knowledge-based approach to your brand. So our content planning suggestions come out with write about these concepts. And then when you write about the concept, again, what it will do is say, okay, now I want to write about electric cars with a 200-mile range. So what it will do then is it will go and have a look at all the pages that are already seen by the search engines as the best for that phrase, including your own if you happen to be there actually. It'll read all that, build a knowledge graph of the top 10 pages and break that down into concepts and say, right, if you want to be an expert on that, you've got to cover all those points. Let's also bung that back into Google Suggest and see what happens there and see if Google comes up with some other ideas and see if we can break down and add that to and see what user intent we've got, so we can sit there and say, right, are people asking for that from user intent is SEOs talk about informational, navigational, and these kind of things. Bollocks to that. What it is somebody asking to buy a car with electric mileage of over a range of 200, or are they trying to compare, or are they trying to? There's a verb in there, and and so we can take the verb and say, right, that is a much better indicator of what the actual intent of the user is. So we can use that. So the plan that comes out is an entirely different approach and concepts to these are the things to write about. It's saying these are the things to write about. These concepts are the things to write about because they're an extension of your brand. They're a development of your brand. So you're going to end up with a more unique development. You're going to be more authoritative in your niche that way.
Okay. So it is doing the analysis not just of your own site, but actually understanding the concepts behind that and then comparing it to the other sites in terms of what you want to, if you like, rank for in very basic
other
terms.
Other sites and user requests as well. So it's what people are asking for on the search engine.
So it is much more focused towards delivering relevant and ROI focused traffic than just, as you're saying, chasing volume. Which
absolutely.
Don't believe in chasing volume.
And in actual fact, one of the biggest mistakes we have by users, because inLinks is a get up and do it yourself. You can just get up and you can have a free account for 20 pages, but most people it works better with a paid account, obviously. But that only starts at £30, $40 a month. So I mean, we're not. I've realised that SEOs have to fight for budgets and things, and if you can give them something low cost but good, then they can work. They can prove it to the person with the money that spends £20,000 a month on Google.
Or they can make sure their agency uses it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So get the agency to use it, and then the agency can give logins as well. So you said getting specific is the important bit, and I think one of the mistakes that users make on our system is we also do this schema association. So we can sit there and say, right, this page is about all these topics.
Yeah.
Can you, as a human in the loop, in the machine learning loop, say what this page is most about, and so you can say, right, it's about range. And so at that point, we do a few things. Firstly, we write some schema that says, hey, Mr. Search Engine or Mrs. Search Engine, this page is about this concept called range. And in case you don't know what that is, here's a reference to something you do understand about range, which is a Wikipedia URL. And then it's also about electric cars, and it's also about Ford, so it's picked up the other bits, but it's definitely put a human in the loop that's got that
schema in there.
So it's write that schema in there, and then also it can look at all the other pages in the system. And where you've talked about range, it'll say, okay, well, we've already got an authority page on range that a human has said is the authority page on range. So where it talks about range in the middle of the going on a long drive with your kids in an electric car problem, it can talk about range and link through to the range page within the body text in there as well. But the mistake that people make is they've got this page about range, and it's also talking about how well your tires should be pumped up, and it's also talking about Tesla chargers along the way and things like that. And so they then try and make it about all these things, and you shouldn't do that. You should say, right, this is the authority. This page is the authority of this idea. If it's important to you to have something about how pumped up your tyres are, write an article on how pumped up your tyres are, and allow the range page to link to that in the sentence about your tyre pressures.
Is relevant,
You don't want to, and maybe you don't want to do that on day one. But the content planner will eventually tell you that tyre pressure is something that is going to affect range. So don't make a page about all things. Because the schema will pick up if you've made it really important in your article, it'll pick it up anyway. But people are talking about, if people are searching for, range, electric car range, at that moment they're not talking about tyre pressure. They need to have that in the answer. They don't have that in the question. So you may need to talk about that on the page, but you shouldn't then make that the focus of the page, because then you're asking the search engines to return it when somebody says, what is the tyre pressure? And if you've got...
clarity of content, clarity of the concept that you're aiming for, and the associated content. I think you said earlier on something like, by the time you've got 4 or maybe 5 concepts on a page, you've kind of got the granularity that you need, as well as like your headline, this is what we're doing. And then don't go for more than that. Take people off to other pages. And this is where you end up with getting, a big knowledgeable website. And I think the difficulty that sometimes CMOs and marketing directors have is that, and I've heard these words before, we want to make our website much simpler, and but they expect their service or their product page to rank against solving a problem, and they don't understand that Google's never going to look at their page which talks about their whizzes and bangs and features as the answer to, the longest range car.
This is the challenge,
and they don't understand that.
But what they can do is they can work towards that. They've got to understand the user journey, and if somebody's starting with the user journey of, I'm looking for the car with the longest electric range, that's absolutely different to saying, I'm looking for a car with a cool name, or a car with go faster stripes or whatever. They're starting their journey in different places. Yes, they're going to get to the same car, hopefully, but they've got a different user journey to get there. So if you want to try and get them straight to that sale checkout page every single time, the problem then is that you've got them in the wrong mindset when you've got there. They weren't looking to buy the car yet.
No.
They were still looking to be proven, be shown that it's got the best go faster stripes. And if you've gone to a checkout page with a car that happens to have go faster stripes, you've not answered their query at that point. So there are things that you can do on your checkout pages to give some flesh to that sort of category, basically, of page.
Yeah.
But what you can do then is allow the blog to weave stories as a journalist would like to write, or as a content writer would like to write, and they can write their stories in the way that I see as a sort of a tumbleweed of ideas, of concepts.
Yeah.
The technology can then pick out those ideas and link them through to the relevant pages, which may or may not be the checkout page, but anyway, ultimately you can control all those links. So all of the entities then become, all those links show the clarity of where the authority is for any one of those topics. So all of a sudden your bundleweed of blog content suddenly turns into for a search engine, a cactus where it's really obvious where the authority is for each of those entities. But really only focus on the entities that are key to your USPs. Don't start trying to be, if you're
all things to all men. Don't be the Dixon Jones of architecture if you're the Dixon
exactly
Jones of
right.
SEO. Bring it back to that.
Don't do what I did for about a decade and try and take a search engine.
Well, that's good. People are learning from your mistakes. That's always a good thing.
I'm so glad that that you could highlight that part of my my dubious history.
Yeah, and I mean, I think talking of the content, the importance of content, and writing lots of important content for lots of multiple things. I think what we've got to talk about in this conversation, we've got to refer to the generation of content with AI.
Yeah.
Because, like, I've got some opinions on it, but I'd love to hear your opinions on, like, are we just going to end up with mindless drivel noise created by AI? Or are we going to end up with better content because it's not written by a human that's fallible? Or
yes to both those questions. But I think so. I think whatever we say here today, yes, people are going to use that AI technology, and it's going to swamp things in 2023 and 2024 before it kind of gets back to some kind of level of normality. And I think that it's. It's so interesting. I mean, anybody that's used it, and I would guess that's at least 2/3 of the people that are listening to the camera already now. You've put something into Chat GPT, and it's come out with, and you go, whoa! I plugged in the other day, write some code to make a Space Invader game out of JavaScript. Bosh! Out came code. I did try the code, doesn't work, but that's. That's but it was interesting that it just came out with a bunch of code. So
have you seen the Samuel L. Jackson tour guide around London film script? No. I have to say, somebody posted that on LinkedIn, and that was I won't go into too much detail, but it's basically Samuel L. Jackson in a film, being a tour guide with an annoying passenger around 7 of London's greatest sites, with Samuel L. Jackson talking in the style of Pulp Fiction, and you read it and you're like, that's hitting the button. But
the dangers come in very, very quickly with OpenAI, and the one that I did was I'm trying to currently create a memory palace for all the squares on chessboards so that I can memorize the chess moves of different openings.
Wow.
So that's one of the sad things I do on my Sundays, And so I put into ChatGPT. What I wanted to do was have all words. So B3 would be a 3-letter word beginning with B, and a C4 would be a 4-letter word. So I asked ChatGPT to create those 64 words really for me. And I didn't talk about chess. I just said, give me 8 words. I decided to abandon letter 1. 8 words starting with 2 letters with a different letter. And every time I tried to say it, it did the first 3. Out of 64, etc. And then it went off, and it completely forgot that it was supposed to be doing 5 letters for this 5-letter word. And so the words were all over the place. And every time I tried to do it, it went wrong. So and if you find me on Twitter or something, there's a screenshot of the errors in there. So it makes some fundamental errors quite quickly, actually, or can do. But to the point, getting back to the point of where it's going to go, basically, there's a little bit of garbage in, garbage out. So if you just say, please write a 2,000-word essay on the benefits of Samuel Jackson doing your street tour. It'll come out with
so
some stuff.
if you get your marketing intern and think, I don't need an expensive content writer, I'll just get the intern to throw stuff into ChatGPT.
Then it's going to start going way off your focus. But inLinks has not completely thrown out the idea of ChatGPT. So what we've done is, because we have these content plans, if you want to write about tours in London, it'll, as we said before, it goes off and has a look at all the entities, all the things that other people are talking about that are already ranking for the tours in London. So probably Buckingham Palace is going to get in there, Tower of London's going to get in there. You know, the sightseeing tour bus company is probably going to get a mention as well. So brand associated very much with London and buses, you know, so it's going to have all those. So we break that down into sections anyway. So what we've got is putting smaller things into ChatGPT is going to give you a tighter focus, and you know. So then we've got these. Let's say it's got 5 sections. Then you've got copy and paste. Write 100 words on the tours in London, using these subjects for this paragraph, and then this subject for this paragraph, and this, and doing that 5 times instead of one button saying, means that we focus very much more back on the entities that we're trying to do. So the content that comes back doesn't go so wrong, and it's a better place. That all said, I have no intention of using that myself when I write my next piece of content, but it's a better way to use it than just going to ChatGPT on its own. If you can train your model, then you're going to get a better thing than everybody else's out there. But you still need to edit that content afterwards.
I was going to say, so how much do you edit the content? Because in my mind, if you think about, and let's take Google as the primary search engine in the English-speaking world. In my mind, Google's mission is to organise the world's content, right? AI-created content is not new concepts.
No.
It's the bringing together of existing content, reformatting, mushing it all together. So it's like, here's a bunch of ingredients on the deck. We'll make something new out of it, kind of thing. Google wants to organise the ingredients, right? I'm thinking, if I was Google, I'd want to just not rank AI-created stuff because it's second-hand, been through the mincer. But I don't know whether...
So I had a conversation, I've had a couple of conversations with some Googlers. And of course, Google now have announced that they're going to be launching Bard, and they were working on their own version of the idea. But I've had a conversation before that with a couple of Googlers. And one thing that came back was, well, would you consider Grammarly as AI generated content, as AI driven? And it is AI driven. It's improving your content. It's getting rid of the typos. My spelling is awful. Sorry, my typing is awful. My spelling is good. Great at Scrabble. Terrible at moving these fingers. And so Grammarly improves the quality of my content without harming anybody necessarily, although they do take my data and feed it into some stuff, so there's a feedback loop there, which I'm sure I didn't really want. But anyway, so Grammarly is at one end, and OpenAI, ChatGPT is at the other. Somewhere in the middle is where it's got to be, because Google's results are just a curation of ideas anyway, so that's all they are. So so that was my first conversation, and someone pointed out, well, it's not what you're using, it's how you use it is a more important question. To going back to the Booking.com, for example, when you say holidays in London or hotels in London, that data that's coming back from Booking.com has to have a machine-generated algorithm to give you the room nights on March 21st to 23rd and the pricing. There's got to be machines in there. It may not be what we're seeing now as OpenAI, but it's very much a machine curating that information. So it's not such an easy question to say, just kill all of the machine-generated content, because now you've lost all the share prices in the world.
So where do you draw the line on?
Where do you draw the line? And
is it data or knowledge, or is it words and jumble.
I think there's a couple of things that Google are going to do. I think that they will try and know whether it's OpenAI generated.
Yeah.
What they do with that information, it may be that it just becomes part of the algorithm. So okay, that's a signal possibly not in your favour.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it may not. It may be in your favour. But I think that they will start to look more at who wrote this and are they an authority in that. Yeah. And I also think that there is a case for saying, you know what, that old algorithm called PageRank, that actually might be something we should pull out the drawer and put back in here, because God, this is a really good way of working out what's spam and what's not spam. So I think that links have not, as much as Google would like links to have had their day, I think their quickest stopgap for stopping OpenAI or ChatGPT or just machine-generated content from breaking out into a rash of rubbish in the search results is to bring back and up the value of the PageRank algorithm or the topical PageRank algorithm, which is something they've got as well. So so I think there's a good call for links. There's a good call for entities, and I think there's an acceptance on Google's part that that machine-generated text is here to stay, and they can't get away from it. Okay. Another thing I'd like to say though, if I've got time, is that ChatGPT is not citing their data sources, and I think that there is a legal case to say, hey, ChatGPT, you're already saying this is on third-party information. That third-party information is proprietary, and you should be citing where you're getting your data sources from. That will also help the user fact check. That will also help brands and people, to focus on what they're good at. And I think will be a force for good. So I hope that when Google comes out with their Bard, they cite their data sources, which will of course mean that the SEO industry has a long way to play yet. But we have anyway, because our goal now is when somebody says, what are the top 10 sites to cite things to see when you come to London, make sure my customer's in the idea. If my customer is the Royal Opera House, then basically I need to make sure that the data sources that these systems are using are, have at least got my brand in them, which goes back to the, get your car into Auto Trader.
Okay. I want to touch on one more thing with the AI and search, because Microsoft and Bing have said, and obviously Microsoft have thrown lots of money into OpenAI. It's their kind of
$1.7 billion last time.
It's quite a lump of change, isn't it? So they're now talking about how they think the Bing search engine will fundamentally change because the results will be outputted, if you like, through like ChatGPT. And now they're talking about language. And I remember doing talks about voice search when Alexa and Google Assistant was very young, and when there was the famous booking of the hair appointment over the phone, and it was done by Google Assistant and things. So my question to you is, are we going to see a return to a non-text interface, if you like, for search? Because is it going to be read out? So are we actually now going to be talking to our phones and ChatGPT giving us if you like, a narrative answer, not a list of results? Because that was one of the things about voice.
I think that it will go. I think that all of the search will go to a narrative answer. Yes, eventually. So if you sit there and type in any generic search, and you will get a narrated result. I think what will happen is that the the systems will start to cite their sources.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if it's still in a narrative result. It'll say, according to Booking.com, the cheapest place to go in here, you know, but however, the Mayfair would say that you want to have the most expensive, you know, whatever it may be. So they will create that variety, but they will endeavour to bring, possibly in terms of natural language, their things. And I think that will be pushed by consumers and probably by law. So I think that there's you know, it may take some years for that to happen there, but I think Bing would be wise to do that before they get sued.
Okay, that's really good. We should kind of wrap things up. We've gone on to the whole wild west of AI in search and things like that. This was really about entity search. In terms of looking forward in the short term, for those kind of CMOs, marketing directors, maybe, you know, senior SEOs and things, what do you think maybe their focus should be in 2023 if they want to perform better for their organisations in this area?
Yeah,
that's a big question.
I think they need to focus on getting their brand not directly into necessarily Google or Bing. They need to understand the data sources that are feeding these systems. So these systems have read thousands of books. If you never got yourself into a book, you're not in that data source. They've read, you know, the whole of IMDb. If you've had an actor do one of your commercials, then, you know, all of a sudden, you know, that you could be in that actor's, you know, associated IMDb profile. So there's different ways in which you can look at data sources, but ultimately, if you're getting your data, your brand into the right data sources, you've got much more chance in the medium term of appearing in the next iteration of these tools in the right place. But again, don't put Dixon Jones into a directory of architects if you're not an architect, because you're just going to bugger the whole thing up. So
look at data sources. Don't just think about your site on the results. Think about the data sources. Think about where the aggregation is.
Sure.
And stay narrow. Stay focused.
Yeah.
Don't.
And bear in mind that every single one of those should be a win in its own right. You know, marketing is about being there when your customer is asking for you. You know, and they're not always asking on Google or Bing. Yeah. You know, a lot of times they're asking on Facebook. You know, and I think that that's still really important. That you know, your brand is associated with those entities, those concepts. And when I talk about an entity, I mean something that's got a Wikipedia page. If it hasn't got a Wikipedia page, it ain't a concept. You can't be, you know, item number SP432 may be really important to you, but frankly, they wanted a widget. They wanted a widget, and you've got to give them a widget.
A Wikipedia widget.
A Wikipedia widget, and that gives another little problem. But so I think understanding data sources and structured data sources, and how you can get into structured data sources and be seen there, and then focusing on only the ones or the contexts that you need, that you're in.
Perfect. Really good. Well, I mean, I think that's been a really good, really in-depth chat about search. So, Dixon, you know, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, but thank you very much for coming on this.
No, it was fun.
Really good.
Cheers.
And hopefully we'll see you again. And for those people watching, please do like and subscribe. Also, please comment on the video as well. And questions and comments, we can pass them on to Dixon, but you can find Dixon on all of the usual platforms, and you could even go to dixonjones.com.
Dixonjones.com or inLinks.com.
Link to it to help him battle against architects, alive and dead.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Thanks for watching.